So the parade just taking place here. Petit Mouchoir proving a real handful for the lad leading him up there, Brian Cooper. I'm sure delighted to be back in the plate, but it would take a huge leap of faith to, I think, see Petit Mouchoir winning this done. That said, Ruby was talking about it there. All of them have some sort of a question mark over them, but you'd have to say him maybe to an even greater extent.
Yeah, like he does have to bounce back. I suppose he has finished. I think he finished fourth third in Ireland, third in the champion hurdle. So if he came back to that type of form, but sure, it's the same with all of them. Like Buveur there, he was beaten by Super Sunday last time over 2.5 miles, albeit on soft ground. Apple's Jade, she was very disappointing in the champion hurdle, ran a fair bit better in the Liverpool hurdle at Aintree over 3 miles, but it still wasn't up to the level that she showed here at Fairyhouse back in November in the Hatton's Grace hurdle or at Leopardstown in the Christmas hurdle over 3 miles.
To me, when you get a race like this where all of them have to maybe answer a few questions, Super Sunday is often the horse that you keep coming back to, Don, because he's the most reliable out of them. I think it's probably fair to say his only poor form figure of late was that 7th in the Stayers hurdle, and you can easily excuse that on stamina grounds. He didn't quite seem to get home in what was described as good to soft ground at Cheltenham, but was probably riding a bit softer than that. It was a truer run race, obviously, than was the case 12 months previously as well. Having said all that, I'm going to go for Buveur there. What do you think?
Look, you know, Super Sunday, he's a horse that kind of slips between the cracks a bit for everybody in terms of race assessment. Like, he won this race last year. I know Mellon and Sam Crow both fell at the third last flight, but he still won it. He beat Wicklow Brave and he beat him well. He's beaten Buveur there last time in the Aintree hurdle. So, now again, that was over 2.5 miles on soft ground. So that was a stamina test more than today's test is going to be. Like today's kind of yielding ground over a sharp 2 miles. So you wouldn't have thought it would play to his strengths. It's probably a 2.5 mile horse. It's probably his optimum. But he's a horse that, you know, he keeps on confounding. He's a multiple Grade 1 winner, and he still probably hasn't got the recognition that he should have got.
And tactics-wise here, Don, Apple's Jade, surely, and I mean, we can be made to look pretty stupid in this game, but surely she's going to bounce off handy back down in distance today. Petit Mouchoir, well, they've mixed it up with him. He could go forward as well if they wanted to give Apple's Jade a lead, and I guess Mellon, the way he's been ridden of late, is another potential candidate to force it. You'd like to think at the very least we'll have a true run race here, won't we?
Yeah, absolutely, Gary. Like, you'd be surprised if they didn't go forward on Apple's Jade, as you say. Over, like, she can make the running. Her best performances this season have been when she has made the running, and dropping back down to 2 miles. Yeah, like you'd think she'll go forward. And Mellon as well. Like he's gone forward in the two occasions on which he's worn cheek pieces, and cheek pieces again on today for the 3rd time. You'd think that they will ride him forward, and I'd say it would be a positive for Mellon if they do ride him forward.
A couple of the horses, as you can see there, just having the final checks a little bit on their toes. Buveur there was momentarily. Somerville Boy there we saw just out of shot now, and Davy Russell in the centre there in the McManus colours riding Buveur there. Of course he'd know Apple's Jade well, having ridden her in the past. Somerville Boy, if those shots are anything to go by, he might perhaps play a more prominent role today as well. Big crowd all trying to get a good vantage point for the Betdaq champion hurdle. Hopefully Wicklow Brave will be none the worse for his spill at Fairyhouse last week, and he'll pop off with them. He can just be a little bit difficult at the start at times. Patrick is obviously just going to try and pop off in rear again on Wicklow Brave. Did try and match strides with Apple's Jade in the Hatton's Grace hurdle earlier on in the season, and cracked early enough on that occasion. So we're almost set for the Betdaq Punchestown champion hurdle, and it's Jerry Hannon to call them home.
The 7 runners coming away from the preliminary area. White flag is raised, and they're off, and the Betdaq Punchestown champion hurdle over 2 miles and 9 flights, and it's Mellon on the rail, just leading to the first. Apples Jade, the prolific Grade 1 winning mare, and the grey prominent on the outside is Petit Mouchoir, followed away from the first flight by Buveur, former dual champion hurdler, and alongside is Somerville Boy. And they're tracked by last year's winner Super Sunday, and held up at the back of the field Wicklow Brave, former winner and last year's second. Making the uphill run to flight number 2, and Petit Mouchoir and Brian Cooper have raced on a couple of lengths in front of Mellon and Punchestown, and third is Apples Jade and Jack Kennedy in a white cap. Somerville Boy and Jonathan Burke is on the outside of Buveur, and Somerville Boy clouted that one as they make the bend, taking there. Somerville Boy and Super Sunday 3 lengths to Wicklow Brave, who's last of the 7. As they go away from that third flight at the top of the track, a good run before they reach the 4th. And the leader is Petit Mouchoir. Brian Cooper tracked 2 lengths back by Mellon and Punchestown, and another 2 lengths then to in third place Apples J. Jack Kennedy. Buveur and Davy Russell next on the inside of Somerville Boy and Jonathan Burke. They're tracked by Super Sunday Robbie Power. Back marker 4 lengths adrift is Wicklow Brave and Patrick Mullins. At the downhill flight, the 4th, taking them into the back straight, and it's Petit Mouchoir, one of 2 outsiders, leads Mellon. Tracked on the inside by Buveur Racing Company with Apples Jade, and then comes Somerville Boy, Super Sunday, and Wicklow Brave remains last of the 7. Racing down the far side, they're soon at the halfway stage, and the grey Petit Mouchoir is stoked by Mellon in the check colours, then Apples Jade and Buveur. Super Sunday just hit a bit of a flat spot there and pushed along for a stride or 2 as they race to the flight at the halfway stage, 5 from the finish. Petit Mouchoir with Mellon second, Apples Jade next on the outside of Buveur, who's being followed by Somerville Boy, Super Sunday, and Wicklow Brave. Heading to 4 flights from the finish, and a little over 3/4 of a mile to go, and it's Petit Mouchoir leading to this flight. Mellon, who jumped up almost level, and then Apples Jade and Buveur. Somerville Boy is followed by Super Sunday and Wicklow Brave, making the run to the 5 furlong point with 3 flights left to jump in the Betdaq Punchestown champion hurdle. It's Petit Mouchoir back a couple of lengths in front of Mellon, who's 3/4 of a length in front of the third running Apples Jade. Buveur is next to the inside of Somerville Boy as Wicklow Brave relegates Super Sunday to be the back marker at the third last flight. And as they come away from it, it's Petit Mouchoir, followed by Mellon on the outside, pushed along is Apples Jade. Just behind them is Buveur, Somerville Boy, Wicklow Brave, Super Sunday. As they begin their good run to the final flight, Petit Mouchoir chased into the straight by Mellon. Buveur is coming up between horses to move third. Wicklow Brave round the outside of Apples Jade, then Somerville Boy and Super Sunday. Into the straight to the final flight, Petit Mouchoir. Is he a sitting duck? With on the outside Buveur. Mellon is next with Wicklow Brave. Buveur comes to pick it up as they race down to the final flight in the Betdaq Punchestown champion hurdle, and it's Buveur and Davy Russell over, and they're asserting from Petit Mouchoir. Wicklow Brave, Super Sunday is coming in the closing stages, but Buveur is back winning champion hurdles for Nicky Henderson and JP McManus. Super Sunday with a late flourish to take the second, and then Wicklow Brave, Petit Mouchoir, Apples Jade, Somerville Boy, and Mellon was last of the 7.
Well, very tough look on Mark Walsh here, but one man's loss is another man's game, and Davy Russell has stepped in for the spare ride of all spare rides here. Buveur wins the Betdaq Punchestown champion hurdle, and he wins it in great style as well, under a very confident ride from the former champion jockey. Had a lovely trail through the race. They went a hell of a good clip, done with Petit Mouchoir taking them along. Super Sunday was out of his comfort zone from a very early stage, but true to form, He's just such a tough and likeable horse. He runs on to grab the runner-up berth, having been last as we joined them there, going to 3 out.
He was last. Yeah, you called it there. He said he bet he'd be second, but your eye is drawn to Buveur there, isn't it? Like with Davy Russell just coasting in behind. He had a perfect toe throughout. He had him lovely settled in behind, just behind the pace on the rail. He moved him out on the run around the home turn to make sure he had clear passage, and he's just coasting up on the outside of Petit Mouchoir here. He's the only one still in the bridle. Everything else is under pressure in behind. Wicklow Brave has ran a cracker on the near side. He's loomed up just on the run around the home turn, and Super Sunday's been niggling along on him after the second or third flight, but Buveur there, he's jumped the last well, and off he goes, scoots on up the run in. He's a top class horse when he's in this form. 2 miles, sharp 2 miles, he's got the pace, he's a dual champion hurdle winner, and he's gone and added a Punchestown champion hurdle to his haul.
Yeah, look at Super Sunday powering home there in second spot, but it's just against a real speedster like Buveur there. He's just, as I say, taken out of his comfort zone and ideally wants that little bit further. Just looked at Aintree to me, Don, on the day. He outstayed this horse in more testing conditions with Buveur there. Just that zip that we associate with him, it was there from the word go today. Had the race run to suit, and Wicklow Brave likewise held up at the back of the field. He was brought through by Patrick Mullins. And Apple's Jade, it's another disappointing run from her, isn't it? I know she has been at least in the race for a long time, but just nothing left at the business end, like we saw from her earlier on in the campaign. Yeah,
well, like, you know, we know she gets 3 miles. She's, you know, 2.5 is a very good trip for her. This is 2 miles on a sharp enough track on good enough ground, and you know, she did come under. She was up there just up on the outside, up in behind Mellon with Petit Mouchoir taking them along, and she came under pressure before the home turn, and she just hasn't picked up. And you know, Buveur there, he just has the pace, this championship dual champion hurdle winning 2 mile pace that he just used a devastating effect to come clear of everything else.
So Mellon just blundering at the final flight there, but he was beating a retreat at the time. And there is our winner. Things went awry for him, obviously, after that very impressive win in the Fighting Fifth Hurdle at Newcastle on his return to the fray. That shock defeat at Kempton. His fall in the champion hurdle, of course, he'd won that egg and spoon race that he wins every year at Sandown in between, but lovely to see him show that dash here today. And Davy Russell, great moment for him as well, Don. Not something he would have expected coming here today, but he's given him a confident ride. I'm sure he'll probably say he wishes he could have had a lead for a bit longer. These jockeys always tend to say, oh, they hit the front